Yar! It's B speaking like a pirate day. That's what day it is. So we may do a little bit more of that in the captain's cabin. Welcome, everybody, to the pre-show. Pardon me for dealing in absolute unethical behavior, but I'm going to finish eating this slice of freezer pizza during the pre-show. So I'm hungry. Hey, Leslie. How you doing? Steve Clark, good to see you. Barbie D, good to see you. And more coming. Daniel Ondra, good to see you, brother. My 10-year-old's room is upstairs. I keep hearing things. They're banging around up there. Matthew Finn. Master Finn. Good to see you, brother. Pardon the gauche unethics of my finishing my slice of pizza. Had to be done. I thought it wasn't as late as it was, and I threw a pizza in the oven. Everybody was at Scouts. They all came charging in about 10 minutes ago. Yes, that's pizza, Barbie D, not real pizza. Was that you, Rainey? That was Rainey yelling, woohoo. Grumpy Stack, how you doing, brother? There, I'm fed and watered for the show. I'm going to start up the... Yeah, skip for now. He wants to update my software. Not right now. We got about 2 minutes left until we go live on the radio station. So if anybody is listening to the stream in video, the first 4 minutes and 25 seconds of this show are just warming us up to go live on radio over at Odyssey Radio. So tomorrow night, and I'll announce this again, we're going to do a little, hopefully call-in tribute to a friend of mine from the festival who died today. Might have been yesterday. So we were all pretty shocked to hear it. I had not seen him in years. And he's a lot younger than I am. But, yeah, he was one of my brothers in arms on the Royal Guard. He had quite a reputation out at the festival. So he was not close family. Not even a close friend. You know, he was at one time. We were close. But you know how things are. You drift off. I left festival almost 17 years ago. 16 years ago. And boom. All of a sudden, a lot of death going around, says Matt Finn. You got that right, brother. Okay, we got about a half a minute, and we're going to go live on radio. So as you all know, if you're here already, stick around, because we're just going to go dark in a minute here. Less than a minute. A few seconds, actually. About 10 seconds, we'll go dark to bring in the opening of the show. So, now's a good time. It's 15 seconds after. We got 10 seconds till we go live. Sit tight. Be right back in.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with two T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. It is Monday night. Happy Monday. This is Scotty Roberts, your host, and this, of course, is the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY radio.com. This show also simulcasts in video in three places over on Facebook. That's my page, Odyssey's page, and Intrepid Radio's page. And also then over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. So come on over. You can watch us, join the chat room over there live, where the whole family of Intrepids is starting to filter in. And you can make some good friends there, good family there right now for many of us who've been doing this for years. And it's good to see everybody over there tonight. And like the broadcast, give it a thumbs up. Helps the algorithms over on my page. And subscribe if you're not subscribed. And also hit the little join button down below the screen. It'll show you 3 ways to become a member of this channel. A step beyond subscription. So thank you all for being here. I was going to talk about, and still am, a very little known character in the biblical text. And she's a character that comes from the Deuterochronica. I don't have the word in front of me, but it's one of those books that's considered by some to be fake, that's considered by others to be canon and truthful, and considered by others to have a whole list of things that prove that it is a copy of something else going on in Scripture. And this book, in the you won't find it in the Jewish Bible. You'll find it in other sources. The Apocrypha, for one. Some Judeo-Christian Bibles carry it, and so we'll talk about that in a minute. You'll find it in the apocryphal books, the Apocrypha books, and so it'll be. I think this is an interesting topic, especially when the criticism compares her to someone else that's in some of the biblical text. So we'll get to that in a second. I just want to say that I'm a little off center tonight. I had an old friend of mine died. He died either today or yesterday. I don't know all the details. I just saw a bunch of people from the old festival days were posting about the death of this man. And he was one of my old Royal Guard compatriots and a friend. His name was Mark Soderberg. And much younger than me. In my perception of the world, he was younger than I. Maybe I'm just remember him being younger. He was kind of he was a bit of a, he was a good actor, a good street entertainer. He was a great sword fighter, kind of gruff. He had that kind of, drinking and smoking kind of gruffness. He was a leader in the group. And he and I were friends, but he was one of those friends that I dropped out of doing festival in 2005, went back for a year. I've only encountered him a couple of times over the years, but pretty much not a close friend, not a close buddy, somebody that used to be a good friend when we were doing festival. And you know how those things go. It's like saying, I was part of this company 20 years ago, and this guy was a good friend of mine, and I haven't seen him in 15 years, but you feel the pang when they pass. Now, I don't have any details. We'll probably know by tomorrow. Dave is going to work with me tomorrow to do a little tribute to him, and we're going to maybe see if we can get a bunch of our festival friends to call into the show and give their stories of Mark. I think if you are a regular listener, this is something that's going to be good for you too. Even if you don't know these people and don't know the person who passed, I believe it's going to be something that gives you some insights from other people on this situation, because I look at it and the first question that comes to my mind is, why am I still alive? And I have friends out there that are younger than me that have passed. We've had a lot of that over the years. Even in my 40s, when I was leaving festival, we had people pass away. And so we've seen more and more of it. And of course, the older I get, the more I see that. And so I asked myself today, and I did a little soul searching, and I found that, am I sad? I asked myself. I wasn't close enough to Mark over the years to be sad. The memory makes me sad, because we hung out together out there for 6 or 7 years. Then there's the side of this equation that had me asking, is this, why am I here? Why am I still here? What is it that took him from his family and leaves me with mine? And it's interesting. I was talking to somebody a little bit today online. It wasn't an argument, which was nice. Somebody who's argued with me in the past. And the thing about the immigration thing and Martha's Vineyard came up kind of sideways. People were saying, well, wasn't Jesus somebody who helped everybody, and because this was his mission? And that was kind of her original post. And I said, well, no. Jesus didn't help everybody. He tried to do things. I think there was a purpose underneath the things that he did. He didn't come to this earth just to heal people and have a ministry. He came to this earth according to the scripture. And so I had mentioned that, I think there are about 12 instances that I know of in the Gospels where Jesus turned away people or got somewhere and saw the crowds were enormous and said, don't get out of the boat. Let's just cast back off. There are times where he saw the crowds were enormous, and he turned around. They went up the mountains so they could have a little respite. And he just needed something to eat sometimes. And there were times where the crowds overwhelmed him, and he said, we're going to call it for today. This is a little too much. And this person said, I find that highly unlikely. I said, well, just look it up. You can read these stories and make up your own mind. And then somebody slipped in there something about, Jesus, there was something about some sideways comment about being made that religious Christians now wouldn't help anybody, especially if your skin is brown. And I could have really launched into somebody over that. I said, well, but all I said was, well, you do know Jesus was one of those brown-skinned folk. I saw somebody else in a totally different post today post a white painting of Jesus and said Jesus was white. And he's somebody who's respected in the paranormal UFO fields as a good researcher. And I even said something to him. I mentioned the Fayum paintings. Remember I showed those on here before? All those little portraits of the Jewish community, the Judean community in the first century that were living in Egypt. And they did casket paintings of them. Very real life, almost photorealistic, but slightly stylized. But they all had that lightly browner skin. They all seemed to have black curly hair. Nobody had long straight hair. Some were bearded, some were clean shaven, and so on. So I said, I said, not that it matters for anybody. I said, but if you're going to have a discussion about brown-skinned people, remember Jesus was a brown-skinned person. He was a first century Judean that was a Semitic Jew that could name his tribe in Israel, whose mother, it was said by their further writings, was a descendant of the Davidic king line. And so you look at all that stuff and you say, well, the guy was a Semite. He wasn't, as this other person had said, he postulated that, well, there were a lot of Greeks in the area in that time too. Greeks and Romans and so on. And I said, well, remember, the Jews were somebody that believed they were a chosen people and they were to keep as pure as possible. That doesn't mean there wasn't a little intermixing, but there you go. So let's see. I'm seeing some things over in the chat room. Leslie said, I also believe that our souls live many lives on this earth. I think you're right. Spiritual life is eternal. Everybody's saying you're not alone, Matthew. I missed something in there. I'll look it up. I'll get to it. Yehudi Jew in English as I didn't exist back then. Well, there you go. The name Jesus is a Hellenized version of the name Joshua. So just so you know. So Jesus was named Joshua. So there you go. There you have it. Well, that's the little trail I'm on. I feel a little haze over my brain tonight. Not that I'm not thinking well. I just feel a little heavy. And I think it's not because I'm grieving for my friend who died. Like I say, I'd gotten over 15 years to not know him very well anymore. But I think it hails back to the memory. And it hails back to the knowing somebody has passed that I was close to once that's younger than I am. And it does make you ask the questions. One that's here alive still. Must be something for me to do. Or, as my female friend was mentioning in some of her posts today, something about, I would think Jesus would heal them all because that's what Jesus did. And why wouldn't he? Why would he let some child die of cancer? Which, of course, opens a whole can of worms for another question that people ask, not knowing what the answers are or caring to know what the answer to that might be, but asking it because they are frustrated by death and war and the death and loss of loved ones. Well, I don't think God makes that happen. I don't think he does not heal people, but I do think that God created a universe that is natural, and there are natural laws. And I do believe when our friends die, maybe you can intercede and ask God for healing. Ask God. I know people that have done that, and they attribute that to God stepping in. But what makes God step in some cases and not in others is what people want to know. So I tend to be a believer in the natural order of things, that when you contract cancer, can God heal that? Sure. But how do you contract it? You contract it because it's a natural thing that happens to humans. Humans have strokes. Humans get hit by buses. Humans get murdered. Things like that happen, and it happens to young people, and it happens to old people. So those things happen to us. So I'm left with that little bit of a haze tonight that says somebody that was a friend of mine a long time ago died. And I'm still not sure of what happened, why he died. I don't believe he was much out of his late 40s, maybe into his mid 50s at the latest, I would think. He wasn't as old as I am. So it's an interesting question to ask yourself. Ask yourself that right now in this moment. Why am I here? Why am I not dead? Why have I not contracted some disease or some cancerous eating virus or disease that has killed me yet? Why am I still here? What do I have to do? And this is where I talk about 20 years from now, you'll regret more of the things you didn't do than the things you did do, because you never know what a day will bring. So think about that. Tomorrow night, Uncle Dave and I are going to put out there to our Fest community that they can call into the show and talk about Mark and perhaps about some of the other people that have passed. And I think it would be a very good thing for us all to talk about these things. So we'll see who shows up, who has a desire to show up, and so on. Politics has divided and riddled, divided, and destroyed a lot of things out at our old festival. Sad to say. And so there are some people that absolutely hate me from out there because of my political stance on things. Most of those are people that I didn't know very well. Anyway, that weren't even born yet when I was out there. Then you've got the other side of that I've got friends who might disagree with me, but don't care because we're friends first. And then you got those who are, old friends, and they'll always be your old friends, like Dave is to me. And I talk to Dave more than anybody else, Uncle Dave from Festival. So tomorrow night, I want you to be here. I want you to participate in tomorrow night, and we'll see how this all goes. So let's see if we can get some good conversation tomorrow night from fresh wounds of people that were friends of this man who died. So again, in memorial, his name was Mark Soderberg, former Royal Guard with me out at the festival. He left a couple of years before I did. He had things he had to leave Fest for a reason, and had other things to do, other things going on. And so we'll see how it all goes tomorrow night. Tonight, we're talking about a young woman by the name of Judith. And the title I chose, just because it popped into my head, maybe if you saw the title, maybe the same thing hit your mind. Remember the old song, Alice, who the F or hell is Alice? I don't remember who sings it now off the top of my head, but that came into my mind. Judith, who the hell is Judith? She was a biblical character, and but not in all Bibles. She was not admitted into the canon of Scripture. And I was going to take some time and read the Scripture about her to give you an idea of who she was. But it was during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar And one of his one of the generals of his vassal states was Holofernes, an Assyrian general. And he's taken down by a woman named Judith. And she was an heroic woman in Jewish literature. But where they have a little problems is deciding, was Judith a part of literature, or was she a real life character? And in chapter 7 of the Book of Judith, the scriptural book, it starts, and I was going to read through these chapters just for fun to tease us with this. I'll just read a couple of verses out of this. It says, the following day, Holofernes ordered his whole army and all the troops who had come to join him to break camp and move against Bethulia. That's a city in Israel. Seize the passes into the hills and make war on the Israelites. And that same day, all their fighting men went into action, and so on. And it carries through. Then in chapter 8, now in those days, Judith, daughter of Merari, son of Ox, listen to this genealogy, son of Joseph, son of Oziel, son of Elka, son of Ananias, son of Gideon, son of Raphaim, son of Ahitub, son of Elijah, son of Hilkiah, son of Eliab, son of Nathaniel, son of Salmiel, son of Sarasadai, son of Simeon, son of Israel, heard this. Her husband Manasseh, of her own tribe and clan, had died at the time of barley harvest. While he was supervising those who bound the sheaves in the field, he was overcome by the heat, and he collapsed on his bed and died in Bethulia, his native city. He was buried with his ancestors in the field between Dothan and Belamon. Now, archaeologically or historically speaking, when you have this much detail in an account that's supposed to be an historical account, it generally is leading you to accept the fact that it's an historical story. Judith was living as a widow in her home for 3 years and 4 months. And she set up a tent for herself on the roof of her house, put sackcloth about her waist, and wore widow's clothing. She fasted all the days of her widowhood, except Sabbath Eve and Sabbaths, new moon eves and new moons, feast days and holidays of the house of Israel. She was beautiful in appearance and very lovely to behold. Her husband Manasseh had left her gold and silver, male and female servants, livestock, and fields which she was maintaining. Not one had a bad word to say about her, for she feared God greatly. And then she hears the harsh words of Holofernes and the general of the Assyrians. And as this story goes on in this scriptural passage, she ends up dressing up in all her finery, taking off the widow's garbs, and all her friends are like, whoa, what are you dressed up for? You look stunning. And so apparently, according to this book, Judith was an incredibly gorgeous, stunning woman. Somebody that your eyes would behold her and it would take your breath away, is what I get from the descriptions. And she goes in and ends up seducing this general, Holofernes. And she did not have sex with him, but she led him on for 3 days, all for one purpose, so she could get him drunk and find the opportunity to take his head, which she did. And she snuck the head out with her handservant and out of the Assyrian camp, because they'd been coming and going. They were friends of Holofernes now. And she got out. She went back to the gates of Bethulia, her city, and they rejoiced at the death of this king, and they hung his head on the wall, facing out from the city gate. And it had the desired effect. So this is the story of her. And I wanted to go through some really cool things about this woman. Now, there is some criticism out there, textual criticism, that this is an apologetic account of a fictional character who was made to look an awful lot like Deborah or like a Jael. If you remember Jael, not Superman's dad, but Jael, probably pronounced Jael, she was the one who drove the tent peg spike into the head of the king of, I don't know who they were fighting now, probably the Assyrians again. And she nailed him to the ground with his head. And so they're saying that this was an account that was similar to that. It was like an apologetic account. But there's enough information out there that says that this is a remarkable, heroic woman. And the Book of Judith is considered canonical by Roman Catholics. So you'll find it in the Roman Catholic Bible. It's Apocrypha literature by Protestants. It's non-canon by Jews. And it tells the story of the ignominious defeat of the Assyrians, an army bent on world domination by the hand of a Hebrew woman. You'll find this in Judith 13, verse 14. And indeed, her beheading of Holofernes, the invading Assyrian general, in his own tent, with his own sword, and surrounded by his own heretofore victorious army out in the camp all around his tent, marks her as a political savior in Israel, kind of on the same par with King David in his early days. So I want you to consider these characteristics of Judith. 1, she commands, plans, and leads. She enters the book bearing her name when the Assyrians have cut off the water supply. And the town at the entrance, Bethulia, is the town at the entrance of the narrow corridor that leads to Jerusalem. And the siege lasted 34 days, and it made the people fractious, thirsty, bitter. And Uzziah, the town's other magistrates, succumb the townspeople's demands, and they say they will surrender to the Assyrians in 5 days. So unless the Lord takes pity. And so upon hearing this, Judith, instead of going to Bethulia's leaders, summons them to her home, chiding them. Now remember, she's a wealthy woman. She chides them for testing God. She declares that she has a plan to save Bethulia, Jerusalem, the temple, and the people. So declining to reveal it, she nonetheless proclaims her deed will go down through all generations of our descendants. And not only do the leaders listen without interruption, they also acclaim her for her wisdom. And like all men in this tale, they do her bidding. And she demands that the gates be opened and that she and her maid be let out of the city, which they do. 2, Judith is verbose, meaning she's really talkative. Other women wordsmiths in the biblical text are Lady Wisdom in Proverbs, Abigail in 1 Samuel, Deborah in Judges 5, and the beloved in the Song of Solomon. And so Judith tops them all with 2 long statements that she makes. First to Uzziah and the other Bethulian magistrates, and the second to Holofernes and the Assyrian forces crowding around to gaze at her beautiful face and figure. She prays 3 times, once before her adventure starts, then for strength to behead Holofernes, and finally in a public song at the national celebration at the end of the book, honoring her deed and the slaughter of the Assyrians. And I want you to see, just listen to one of these verbose statements she makes to the magistrates. It's Judith 8, verses 11 through 27. Right here. Goes like this. When they came, the magistrates and Uzziah, she said to them, "Listen to me, you rulers of the people of Bethulia. What you said to the people today is not right. You pronounced this oath, made between God and yourselves, and promise to hand over the city to our enemies unless at a certain time the Lord comes to our aid. Who are you to put God to the test today, setting yourselves in the place of God in human affairs? And now it's the Lord Almighty you're putting to the test, but you will never understand anything. You cannot plumb the depths of the human heart or grasp the workings of the human mind. How then can you fathom God, who has made all these things, or discern his mind, or understand his path? No, my brothers, do not anger the Lord our God. For if he does not plan to come to our aid within 5 days, he has it equally within his power to protect us at such time as he pleases, or to destroy us in the sight of our enemies. Do not impose conditions on the plans of the Lord our God. Don't we do that an awful lot? We throw out the fleece to God. I'm going to put a condition. Lord, I'll serve you if you do this, this, and that. Save my dying baby, and I'll serve you forever, kind of thing. God is not like a human, she goes on, being moved by threats, nor like a mortal to be cajoled. So while we wait for the salvation that comes from him, let us call upon him to help us, and he will hear our cry if it pleases him. For there has not risen among us in recent generations, nor does there exist today any tribe or clan or district or city of ours that worship gods made by hands, as happened in former days. It was for such conduct that our ancestors were handed over to the sword and to pillage, and fell with great destruction before our enemies. But since we acknowledge no other God but the Lord, we hope that he will not disdain us or any of our people. She goes on. If we're taken, then all Judea will fall. Our sanctuary will be plundered, and God will demand an account from us for their profanation, for the slaughter of our kindred, for the taking of exiles from the land, and for the devastation of our inheritance. He will hold us responsible among the nations. Wherever we are enslaved, we will be a scandal and a reproach to the eyes of our masters. Our servitude will not work to our advantage, but the Lord our God will turn it to disgrace. Therefore, my brothers, let us set an example for our kindred. Their lives depend on us, and the defense of the sanctuary of the temple and the altar rests with us. Besides all this, let us give thanks to the Lord our God for putting us to the test as he did our ancestors. Recall how he dealt with Abraham, and how he tested Isaac, and all that happened to Jacob in Syrian Mesopotamia while he was tending the flocks of Laban, his mother's brother. He has not tested us with fire as he did them, to try their hearts, nor is he taking vengeance on us, but the Lord chastises those who are close to him in order to admonish them. It says, Then Uzziah said to her, All that you have said, you have spoken truthfully, and no one can deny your words, and so on. The story goes. So I hope that this is interesting to people. I see our numbers have dropped just in who's viewing in the chat room right now. I hope that's just people coming and going, and not people not liking the topic. So this is where this story goes, at least in her book. And so she was a very verbose person, as you can tell. It's one of the longest speeches in ancient Old Testament writings from a woman. 3, she strategizes. She dressed in a way to entice the eyes of all men who might see her, says Judith 10, verse 4. Judith and her maid set forth at night down the valley, intending to be captured. They were stopped by an Assyrian border patrol and escorted by 100 men directly to Holofernes. She readily spins a tall tale that contains just enough fact to be believed. And claiming to have direct access to God, she promises to guide Holofernes and his whole army through the hill country to Jerusalem without the loss of life or so much as a dog growling at them. Her words delight the general and his attendants. So calling her beautiful and eloquent, he welcomes her to the camp and grants her request to travel through the camp at night to bathe at a spring and pray. Thus, this unprotected and unexpected guest in the Assyrian camp dangles herself alluringly as bait and waits for 3 days for a chance to strike and save Israel. Verse 4. Now, the reason I'm going through this is because she's a remarkable woman. I'm not preaching a sermon. I want you to see what a remarkable person this woman is, and that it came out of Scripture. For those who say the Scripture only denigrates women, this honors her very highly. So throughout the whole book of Judith, it seems that Judith merely smiles and men melt and collapse. Wisely, it's like when I met my wife, Rainey. I got to tell you, she looked at me with those eyes, and I was a goner. So wisely appealing to their senses of sight and smell, Judith mesmerizes these men. Her weapons of warfare are sensual and material. She dresses carefully, following the success of her ruse and assassination plan, and it all depends upon her ability to entice Holofernes. For her adventure, she removes her sackcloth, which is a cloth and a garment put on for mourning, and her widow's dress. She bathes and richly perfumes herself. There's nothing better, men, you'll agree with me, nothing better than a sweet-smelling woman. That's a great smell to the nostrils. So she bathes herself and richly perfumes herself, fixes her hair, selects a festival dress, dons a tiara as her battle garb's finishing touch, and she accessorizes her outfit with rings, with bracelets, anklets, earrings, other jewelry, and attractive sandals. In the intimate seduction banquet scene, set in Holofernes' tent, which had several rooms, a huge tent, Judith simply reclines on a lambskin, nibbles her food brought from Bethulia, and flatters the general by telling him, "Today is the greatest day of my whole life." And she's laying on a lambskin in his tent, nibbling her food. She presents such a pretty picture that gullible Holofernes, beset with lust, drinks himself into senseless, fatal oblivion. And the fifth point here is that Judith acts for the common good. Judith murders Holofernes, the enemy of Israel, the one laying siege to their city, a world-class bully who slaughtered his way through Put, Lud, and the lands of the Rassites, the Ishmaelites, the walled towns along Wadi Abran and Silsisha. He set fire to the tents of the Midianites and the fields of Damascus. This is all a matter of history. And so alone with him, late at night in his tent, Judith beheads him with 2 strokes to the neck, praying beforehand, of course. She rolls his corpse to the floor. She yanks down a jeweled canopy from above his bed. She walks out of the tent and hands his head to her waiting maid, who puts it in the food sack. And together the women stroll through the Assyrian lines as they have every other night they've been there, allegedly to pray and bathe. And you know, the soldiers are all like, how you doing? Going to take a bath again, eh? She's a guest of Holofernes. So this time she skipped the prayer and the bath routine, and they head straight up the mountain to Bethulia's gates. And there Judith starts shouting. The gates open and she shares her story. And she carefully proclaims in front of all that she's not been defiled by Holofernes because the Lord protected her. Her face tricked Holofernes and brought his downfall. So displaying his head and no doubt unraveling the jeweled canopy, her story is believable. Uzziah proclaims Judith is blessed by the Most High God above all other women on earth. And this verse is an echo of Deborah's vindication of Jael's similar situation, hands-on murder of Sisera. It's all pivotal Roman Catholic theology, for it's also spoken of Mary. So same things were said of Mary that were said of Judith. So now, here you've got this remarkable woman who performs this historic act, and she, and you can see the kind of person she is. The Book of Judith is this truly remarkable, presents us this truly remarkable heroine, Judith. She's introduced as a devout, shapely, beautiful, and wealthy widow. She exhibits characteristics showing her the equal of Israel's finest warriors. She has tactics. Indeed, her beheading of Holofernes and the invading Assyrian general in his own tent with his own sword and surrounded by his own heretofore victorious army, no less. This marks her as a political savior in Israel, as I said earlier, on a par with David. And there's a few more points that we may not get to them all, but Judith displays extraordinary courage. This is point number 6. Anticipating the gruesome outcome of the 34-day Assyrian siege against Bethulia, Judith describes it this way. This is what she says: the slaughter of our kindred and the captivity of the land and the desolation of our inheritance. That was something we read in Judith 8. And if the little town at the gateway to Jerusalem falls, Jerusalem is going to be exposed and the sanctuary looted. But unlike the Bethulian magistrates who cry to the Lord for rain and hope for deliverance from the Assyrians, Judith does something very different. She acts. She moves. And correcting their theology, she proclaims the siege as a test from God on them, like the one he put Abraham and Isaac in through. And even thanks God for it. So everybody knows that the Bethulian men, while brave, present no match for the Assyrians' 170,000 strong infantry and 12,000 cavalry. And Judith, unarmed, alone, but for her accompanying maid, steps forward. Point 7, Judith and her maid. A silent, anonymous maid shadows Judith throughout her adventure and shares equally in it. Serving as an inclusion, the maid summons the magistrates to Judith's home, receives emancipation just before Judith dies at age 105. The maid, it seems, also is beautiful, for the awestruck Assyrians marvel. Who can despise these people when they have women like these among them? Maid cares for the physical needs of her mistress, her food, her clothing, and acts as chaperone and attendant. Necessary qualifications adding to the mystique and the credibility of this great lady, claiming she flees in distress from her doomed countrymen to the Assyrians because the Hebrews are about to be devoured, she tells Holofernes. And so the text hints at a deep bond between Judith and her maid, and the deep faith that they share with one another. And both are members of the covenant community. And the maid observes Judith's lifestyle of prayer and fasting. And although the text doesn't indicate that the maid knew Judith's complete plan or was asked to accompany her, I think that Judith's character indicates that she would not order someone to come with her on what could be a death mission. I believe she asked her maid, and the maid, meeting her eyes and with her head held high, nodded, "Yeah, you bet your ass I'm coming along." And I believe they prayed together. And in modern terms, both were enemy agents that were bent on the destruction of Israel's foe. And both are heroines in this book. This is the real reason I wanted to present this story tonight. It is a story of in this day and age that we live in now, a great story to be heralded high and vaunted. It's a story of female heroism, especially in a book that we seem to think is all patriarchal. So there's a couple of more points here. There's Judith's heritage, Judith's theology, and these are then her as a prophetess, and Judith and her countrymen. And that's all this information that I have left here. And we've only got about 4 minutes left. So maybe we'll hit some of this in the after show. But her heritage, she's introduced with a lineage virtually unparalleled in the biblical text. I read that genealogy that goes all the way back. The descendant of Simeon. Her genealogy includes 16 progenitors. Doesn't even make it back to Simeon. The genealogy, a significant textual marker, establishes her as a formidable literary character. And in a very interesting psychological insight, her prayer for help with her plan to save Israel and assassinate Holofernes, the besieging of Assyrian general, begins with a remembrance of Dinah's shame from Genesis 34:2. Judith, by her upcoming valor and good deed, expresses determination to erase this early but still remembered defamation. Her covenant heritage combines prayer and action. She calls on God to break the world-renowned pride of the Assyrians by the hand of a woman. Judith's theology. She ranks along with Deborah. If you look at Deborah, one of the judges in the Book of Judges in the Old Testament. Judges 5. She's the wife of Manoah. Hannah, Naomi, Abigail. These are all, she mirrors their theologies in the Old Testament in the sense that they all comment on God's character and actions. However, in terms of verbosity, she exceeds them all, as we already covered. She credits God for the victory over the Assyrians and for the killing of Holofernes. And her theology includes possession, shows her leadership. She sings of my territory, my young men, my infants, my children, my maidens. That's what she sings of in her final song at the end of the Book of Judith. Her song, containing many distinctively feminine insights, details her preparation for war, how she anointed her face with perfume, fixed her hair, and so on. She is lauded as a prophetess. And although the text does not call her by the appositive prophetess, her words and actions raise the possibility that she indeed was a prophet or a prophetess in the biblical terminology. The first instance to Uzziah and the Bethulian magistrates that I am about to do something that will go down through all generations of our descendants. Now, she was either very confident or she was a prophet. The final point here about her is Judith and her countrymen. We got 1 minute left. She relates well to the other women. They express no hint of jealousy toward her beauty, her wealth, her piety, and her accomplishments. Indeed, they arguably identify with her. She inspires them. They sing her praises and dance in her honor. And Judith and the women crown themselves with garlands. Judith then leads the women first, with the men following in a celebratory victory dance, just as Miriam, the prophetess, led the women after the victory at the Sea of Reeds during the Exodus. In both stories, a mighty foe bent on destruction of God's covenant people falls. A heroine knows no greater honor. And we squeezed it in. I had to omit some things, but we squeezed it in. Folks, thanks for listening to this and all my radio listeners. Guess what? We're at the end of the show, and we're going to let you guys go. So thank you for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow night. You can stick around over in the YouTube channel for the after show, The Captain's Cabin. And it's Talk Like a Pirate Day, so get your pirate voice on. In the meantime, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, good evening, mateys. By thunder, welcome back to the Captain's Cabin, our after show. And it's Talk Like a Pirate Day officially, so we'll do our best for a little bit. If we get Uncle Dave in here, perhaps he'll regale us a bit with his Captain Morgan and others. So I wish it was the Captain Morgan rum. So thank you all for being here, for sticking around. We had a good show. I enjoy that story. I saw what you said, Matt Finn. I think it might be a literary tale. I need to look into that a little bit more. I totally understand and would agree with, in most cases, some of the criticism about this story. So I'm going to look into that and find out see if I can find out a little bit more about it. So, but I tend to agree with you that it's a story that's built on some of Israel's historical characters. It's all up to the guys who had to decide whether or not it was canonical, whether or not it was actual scripture, and so on. That's always what bothered me a bit about, was the balancing act to try to decide what should go in the Bible and what should not. What is canon and what is not. I see Uncle Dave out there in the wings, but there's a lot of moving around, so I'm going to wait till, I think until he's a little more settled down over there, sitting and ready to roll before I bring him in. I don't see his face. I'm looking at his ceiling, I think, after a bunch of, maybe he passed out and dropped his phone to the floor. I don't know what it is. So, Sean Stroik, the win history, right history. Yeah, to a certain extent. I used to believe that more than I do now. Only because I think to the victor goes the spoils. Also, those who are victorious, what else do? They write the history of the event. It's like I said about the Exodus. People go, well, why wasn't it show up anywhere in Egyptian writings? Because, dummy, the Pharaoh would never write, my slaves kicked my ass this year and inscribe it on a temple. That's not what they did. At the same time, while, yes, history gets written by the victors, I think history also has been written by those who lost, or those who were neutral parties, who saw what was going on, who experienced it, who also knew those histories. So I think what we have to do, the work when we study history, is to figure out who's telling the true tale, and how do you decipher that? How do you do an investigation or a forensic study of something written in history? So, but I get your point exactly, Sean Stroik. So, well, I might be seeing Dave. I think I'm seeing him. I'm seeing him with his beard. He's stroking his beard. And I think he's almost ready. You ready, Dave? Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Oh, there it is. Boom.
Hey.
There's Dave.
How you be tonight?
I be doing fine.
Excellent. Well,
so
I had actually planned on coming to you from the mobile digs, but I don't feel like climbing in there after me fall yesterday.
I'll bet. How's your bones tonight?
My bones is weary tonight.
How's the muscles surrounding your bones?
They're much worse. They're much worse.
So anybody, if you want to call in and talk like a pirate, you can only call in tonight if you talk like a pirate.
That be so.
That'd be now. We won't be talking like a pirate all the time.
I'm wearing the Royal Navy tonight.
I see that.
Because everything else is in the mobile digs. And I said, well, I'll wear my Royal Navy.
I should be getting me red coat on. So
anyways, that's where I be.
Matthew Sainsbury, if you're going to talk like a pirate, give me a thumbs up and I'll bring you in. So I just see his big
He
M.
lives outside the country, and he is from Barbados, and so he can speak with his Barbados accent, and all I think it's totally false.
I think that would pass. Let's bring him in. How you doing?
Good day, mate.
Good night, Scotty. Hi, good night, Scotty. How you doing?
You
guys can hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear
you. You have the voice of the maidens that we once pillaged.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks very much. Well, I was listening
Take
to
no
what
offense.
you were. Yeah, no problem. I was listening to what you were talking about concerning Judith. I've heard of the book because during Hanukkah, I think it is, some Jews they make some special. I think it was something that she gave Holofernes eating for. She did her slewing of him. I think there's some Jews that do some recipe and I think they connected with Judith during Hanukkah. I think my memory serves me right. Now, I do maybe have an opinion about the story, maybe a type of allegory for what Israel was going through, being under oppression, because they had a lot of major empires that afflicted them, especially Assyria, because Sennacherib, he was another one that took a lot of Jews captive to Assyria and things like that. So Nebuchadnezzar is another one too, because I noticed that they put Nebuchadnezzar in that book as well. And the other books that are very important alongside with Judith are First and Second Maccabees. That gives us the history of a Seleucid Syrian king called Antiochus Epiphanes. That boy, whew, he was a guy that really persecuted Jews a lot. So yeah.
There was some debate when I was a younger man that Antiochus Epiphanes was that the Antichrist is the eschatological Antiochus Epiphanes.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to think that Antiochus Epiphanes, they were talking about Antiochus Epiphanes and the king of Tyre. And so there you go. Antiochus Epiphanes was just his name alone that he gave himself. Very interesting.
Yeah, he called himself Epiphanes. But they have a nickname for him, Epimanes, the madman. They give him that nickname as well because he was a hostage of Rome because his father, I think his father was allied with Hannibal, the famous Carthaginian general, and so. But his father used the war elephants a lot in these battles, but he was defeated at a place called Magnesia in Turkey. But he had to pay Rome also had tribute, and also his own son Antiochus IV, he was taken hostage to Rome. So that is really how he began to climb up the political ladder, because he used to like to dress like the Romans. They said that he had some very odd behaviors, like when Romans would go to the bath and so and bathe in the public baths, he would pour oil in the ground, cause them to slip and fall and do a lot of strange things. So that's why they give him that nickname, Epimanes, the madman. Yeah.
Well, cool. Good information.
Yeah.
Well,
No
thank
problem.
you.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about the Book of Judith? Do you think it was a book about an actual character or a literary invention?
Well, I would say that it could be part allegory and part literal. I could put it in both areas in that category, because it really reminds me a lot of the story of Jael or Jael in the Bible when she dealt with Sisera.
Yep.
But
She drove a tent peg through his head.
Yeah. Because there was I think there's another I saw on a documentary on the History Channel called Bible Battles, and they were talking about that story of Sisera. And also there is a famous site in Israel called Michmash Pass, and they said that in 1917, Major British General Edmund Allenby, he had a junior officer who came across the name of Michmash in the Bible, and they were actually camped near it, and they wanted to get to these Ottoman Turks. And he actually was able to find a narrow pass called Bozez and Sina or something, where it has like a trap area you can get to the top of the heights where the Ottoman Turks were at Michmash. And he copied the strategy that Jonathan and his armor bearer did, and actually surprised and attacked the Ottomans, similar to how Jonathan defeated the Philistines. It's like quite interesting stuff there.
It's all interesting stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
I'm going to let you go. You're a little choppy. I had to concentrate a little too hard. But stick around in the chat room, and I'm going to bring in Sarah Yusuf. We'll see you, brother. Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
All right. And there's Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the ship tonight.
How be ye tonight, Sarah?
Surprisingly well for a Monday. So.
Monday, Sunday, Thursday, they're all the same.
All day is ending in day.
We're all trying to talk like pirates tonight. You doesn't have to, because you'd be booty. Well, that came out totally wrong. I didn't mean it in that way. I meant you'd be booty. You'd be something would ransom you. So, unless you're a female pilot like that Granieri.
So,
is this going to go on all night?
It's hard for a man at sea to dig a hole for himself, but you've done it.
There it is. I need to go get my coat. Talk with Dave for a minute. Put Dave on the
all right.
track.
You go get your red coat. I'll feel better.
So how are you, Uncle Dave?
I'm good. How are you?
How was the Viking buffet? The
Viking Fest was wonderful. And then as I was packing things up on Sunday, my last trip to the walk-in, I grabbed the last 3 items, and had them in my arms, and I came out the kitchen door, and I was attaching the spring to the kitchen door, and I turned around and forgot that I'd left a case of water on the loading dock. I tripped over the loading dock, fell into a beam, and then fell off the loading dock onto my shoulder and ribs.
Oh my.
And I had all this food that I grabbed out of the walk-in and stuff. I came crunching down to the ground. I heard all this muffled cracking and such, and my first thought was I just broke 3 ribs, and the wind was completely knocked out of me, and I was laying there, and I could hear people hollering, and they were rushing in my direction because people saw it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm laying there, and I'm doing an assessment. Okay, I can move my fingers, so my arm's not broken, and I move my arm, and I'm like, okay, my shoulder's not broken. And I'm kind of just going down the track list. The people get to, let's set you up. And I'm like, wait. I'm still trying to figure out what I broke because I heard all this breaking sound. And one of the guys goes, well, there's a huge carton of eggs here that are all crushed. Oh, yeah, I was holding eggs. Okay, let's sit me up and see if that's all that broke. And I broke the eggs. I didn't break me. I was wandering around, finished loading stuff up, drove back to Rochester, and decided I was in so much pain on my left side that I'd better go get x-rayed. I went in, they did x-rays and CTs and all this stuff, and determined that my ribs are not broken. My shoulder was not broken, though my chiropractor will be happy. My shoulder has been slightly dislocated for the last month, and every week we've been working on trying to move it back into place. I moved it back into place in one movement.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's where it's supposed to be now. And for the first time in a month, my shoulder doesn't hurt after that fall.
Yeah, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So
it was a fall you were meant to have.
Oh my God. So my chest is so painful, and I've got a huge bruise where I also had my steel coffee cup held against me by all the food that I was holding in that arm, and came down and pressed that into me really well. So
yeah, you're lucky you didn't snap anything.
I'm super lucky. Super lucky. And it's mainly because so this is a loading dock on the back side of a kitchen at a Boy Scout camp. So the ground is all super sandy because we're out in the woods. If it had been an industrial loading dock with concrete and stuff, I'd have broken my shoulder, my arms, and who knows what else. But landing in the sand helped.
Yeah.
So
I'll bet it did.
So I'm in a lot of pain. I'm on pain pills, and it's sort of muffled pain. But when I'm fine if I'm sitting still or if I'm standing up, but that process of going from sitting to standing or standing to sitting, not at all comfortable. And when I was laying down in bed last night, I realized the weight of the blankets is too much for my chest. I finally had to get up and just sit in the chair and sleep in the chair last night. It was the only place I could find a position that I wasn't in pain. But
yeah, it sounds like you strained the fascia.
Yeah. So I was going to do the show tonight from the motorhome and have the barrel open and drink rum and have a good time. But I'm on a lot of extra meds, and I don't want to mix that with the booze. And I didn't want to climb in and out of the motorhome today. So
yeah, well, hopefully, when Scotty gets everyone together for tomorrow, we'll definitely, raise a glass. To friends present and fallen. So
I'll climb into the motorhome for that.
Yeah.
Light up a cigar and we'll have I was going to say have a good time, but we won't really have we will, but we won't.
It'll be a tribute.
We will. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Mark was an amazingly funny man, and the stories that will be regaled will be funny to listen to. It's a tragedy to lose Mark, but Mark was such a wonderful man and did such wonderful things, and I want to let people know who and what he was. So
yes.
Yeah.
And that's how they live on. And yes, Matthew Sainsbury, you are correct. This is my British red coat. I put a sash around it. It becomes me pirate coat.
Yep.
So
it's definitely red.
And I'm wearing me Royal Navies.
So, and they were never meant to button all the way down, although I am bigger now than I was 15 years ago. They would fasten up at the top, and they would wear them open.
It's called a swallowtail.
I stole a lot of buttons. No, I didn't off of this one. So there it is. It's got the pockets.
The other coat that I have of yours is the one that's missing all the buttons.
Yes, that's the scarlet red one.
Yeah.
This is the madder red, which is more like a brick red. So
Yeah, it's a little bright.
yes.
A tankard to ye, mate. A tankard to ye.
And a tankard to you right back at ye. Or a can. Pick up your jar or your can.
I'll have to get all your alcohol situated before the show tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Well, and so last Thursday we did lodge as Talk as a Pirate, because I try and do the holidays or whatever slightly before, like Labor Day. If we don't meet on that, because it's a Monday and we don't meet on a Monday, so the Thursday before I will do my Labor Day thing. I wear a hard hat, because only the master can wear a hat, and I has a large pile of hats, so I wear a different hat for each week generally. And so it just happened that one year, September 19th was a Thursday, and so the master in charge on that year said, "Why don't you come up and do lodge as Captain Morgan?" And I said, "I'll do it." And so that sort of started a tradition with us. And I do tell you, it was interesting. We had a visitor in lodge last week from one of the appendant bodies, and he was most amused and jumped in on it. He had to do a presentation for our lodge and did it as a pirate. I loved it.
Nice.
I wore me reds, and my senior warden wore my red and black coat, and or my red and black silks that I hadn't worn those for years and years and years, and I can just button them right now, but I wouldn't be able to breathe. So,
Yes.
But in a few more months, if I continue losing the weight, I'll be able to get back into that outfit, and I haven't worn that outfit in I don't know how long. Crazy.
Well, right now,
And,
it'll just give you some tight binding for your chest.
Yeah. Well, now it'd probably be good to wear.
Now, is that the same coat you're wearing that had the red facings on it, and you changed them out?
No, so I have my black wool with the red facings. I had my junior warden wearing that one. And I wore my red coat with black facings, which is the short coat. And then I had a set that were black silks. It's actually a damask. It's not really a silk, but it's black lined in a red damask, and then it has all kinds of silver braiding all over it, and it's got the 4 captain stripes on the sleeves, and the sleeves that button all the way up to the shoulder and all that.
Nice. Well, this is 42nd Royal Highlanders is what this coat is, and
Is it what this coat be?
It's what this coat be.
Aye.
Correcting me speech like that.
Talking like a Londoner, to be sure.
That's right. And they used to be a buff facing and cuff, and that got taken off once we were given the royal writ, and we became a Royal Highland Regiment, and they sewed the navy blue on royal blue to show that they were the King's Royal Regiment. And the piping that you see on this, if you look, let's see if I can turn that around enough for you to see.
It's
if you
white
see
with
the
fine red piping in it.
You see the fine red piping. There's 2 stripes going along the white or the buff colored piping, and that signified the regiment, the 42nd. They were all different in all the different regiments. And so Rainey made this for me, and she sewed all these button tabs in that. She put
That's a
pockets
labor of
in
love
them.
in itself.
I'm
Oh, it
telling
is.
you.
Because I've
She-
made several in there. It's a huge pain in the ass. Let me tell you.
I made my first one, my scarlet red one, and we did that all with needles. It was not machine stitched at all. And I think Rainey did the basic body shell. She used the machine, and then hand stitched on, of course, all the lace. But
I cheated.
this
and used
coat
the
she
machine.
made in, I believe, I want to say 2006. She made this coat. So that would make it 16 years old.
And a beautiful coat it is.
It is.
And the nice thing about a red coat is you can't see the blood stains from the feller that owned it before you. Did you freeze? Did you both freeze?
Did.
Oh, okay. So we're still here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awaiting the return of the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yes, the Dread Pirate Roberts. Can you, Scotty? What's you're just frozen? I don't know.
Yeah. Didn't our mothers tell us that if we kept a certain face too long,
Yeah,
it would stick that
keep
way?
doing that, you'll stay that way. So how are things in Virginia?
They're good. They're good. I mean, the weather's finally cooling off. So there he goes. He'll be back in a second. So I mean, we're still coming for some reason. We're still having a fruit fly issue. I don't know if maybe just my house is just infested by Beelzebub or whatever. But
Interesting. So they like balsamic vinegar. So set your fruit fly traps with balsamic vinegar. The sweetness.
I definitely did that, and I could have got I've set it out for like a week ago, and I've got like 20 or so in there. So, but I mean, the weather's been cooling off, so it's been nice. You know, it's actually been.
There was a bakery that I used to like here locally, and they had made the most amazing French bread and stuff like that. And I would occasionally pick up, and I noticed that we were getting all these fruit flies, and I couldn't figure out where they were. And then I realized there was one of the particular days I was looking at the bread, and I thought, is there something inside the bread bag? And I looked, and sure enough, there were fruit flies inside the bread bag. They were coming in from the bakery.
Oh.
So I just stopped shopping there. I let them know that, hey, you're infested. You've got fruit flies. You're shedding them all over the place. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, we've been trying to clean everything out, the fridge out, and the fruit baskets. Everything's in Tupperware.
Garbage disposal. You have a garbage disposal?
Yeah.
They love garbage disposals because they're damp and they're dark, and they've got. So fruit flies, they like to fly down the little hole and hang out in the shadows where it's dark and moist and full of slime and whatever that they live on. And so keep a cover on your garbage disposal.
Yeah, and we usually keep ours, clean it out pretty frequently. So.
Yep, but a lot of people don't put that stopper in there. And if you've got, you're just creating a breeding place for them.
Yeah. So
throw that stopper in when you're not using that sink.
Yeah.
You can always pull it out when you're using it, but
yeah. I mean, it's pretty much 95% gone, or it's the tail end of it, which I think a lot of it was the weather. We actually think most of it was coming. We had to tear out some Concord grapevines that we had, so they were mostly coming from there because we had more grapes than we knew what to do with. So instead of making jam or anything, or giving to the neighbors and all that stuff, So, but yeah, I like spring, and these transition seasons. I always enjoy like spring and fall, and now we're starting to get the fall things and the difference. It's getting to be soup weather and all that stuff.
I was at the market today picking up stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I could make navy bean soup. Well, still kind of warm, but ooh, I could do a split pea soup. That would be really good with the ham hocks and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking. It is almost soup weather.
Yeah. And then a lot of the festivals are going on right now. There was recently an Apple festival, and all the county fairs and horse shows and stuff are going on right now. So people have been enjoying that, and
Okay.
the Amish come out with
so
their donuts.
I just
and all
opened
that
this up.
stuff.
I just opened us up in another device. We're online, so we are definitely there, and there are still people in the chat room. Scotty is not with us. I don't know what happened to Scotty.
Well, me power glitch.
You're welcome to call in if you'd like, Mr. Robert.
I'm here. Yeah. You can call in if you like. Well,
if you'd like to join your own show.
I'm glad it kept the broadcast up.
Yeah, I got to thinking as we're sitting there talking, maybe the two of us are off in the nether regions just chatting with each other.
And
I didn't even get into my whole pumpkin spice rant. Just that would eat up a whole.
Well, you can still do your pumpkin spice rant.
No.
Oh no, feel free, because I despise the pumpkin spice thing.
Yeah, it has its place, but I mean, it doesn't have to be in
pumpkin pie. It has its place in pumpkin pie.
Yeah,
but it's so into everything. I won't even
need to
eat
be in the
pumpkin pie
coffee
anymore.
or in the weird places and all this stuff. I mean, it's abuse against spice, and as an Asian, I'm offended.
So here's the thing. My gas station, so it's always had hazelnut, and I like a nutty coffee, so I've been drinking the hazelnut. And then they came out with this Southern pecan coffee, which I really enjoyed. In fact, I enjoyed mixing that and the hazelnut together, and it made a really wonderful coffee. And then all of a sudden, one day I came in, and there's no pecan coffee, but there's pumpkin spice, and I'm like, you did not get rid of my coffee for that crap. So
they did.
I've complained.
And then it'll be all winter stuff after that, right? The winter green.
They're gonna have to get rid of something else. They could get rid of their house
it's already the Christmas stuff. So some Walmarts, they're already putting Christmas stuff out.
I know.
It
hasn't even been Halloween yet, and you've got Christmas stuff out.
Yeah,
I
they've
hate
been
that.
glossing over Halloween like the past couple of years, and then it's like you may have a couple of pumpkins that cover Thanksgiving and Halloween, and then it's straight to Christmas. So can you believe it's almost end of the year? 3 months, and then the year's done.
This year has gone by so fast.
Yeah.
That be sure.
Yeah. Fast.
It has.
We're going fast through time.
There was a day when I enjoyed the speedy passage of time. It's like, yeah, let's get on with things. And now it's like it's going too fast. I'll look up and it's Monday again. It was just Monday of last week. So
yeah. Well, I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff done before the first weekend in October when I have to be out in North Carolina, and I'm just beside myself with how fast the time is going by.
I would love to do that. I would love to go to North Carolina with you. And,
I would love you to do that as well.
Where in North Carolina are you going, if I may ask?
Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Charlotte, where my daughters have. He's got stuff going on. You got stuff going on out there, right, Dave?
Yeah, your daughter's opening up a pirate mermaid. No, I'm going out. I'm going out there because of that.
Yeah, they're opening up at the North Carolina Renaissance Festival. They opened up a booth out there, and for their mermaid stuff, pirate and mermaid.
Right.
So that's what they're going to be doing. I'd like to drive out there with Dave, but I'm supposed to be gone the whole month of November in Sweden, and so I don't want to be gone.
November's not a good time to go to Sweden.
Well, it snows and stuff.
But you don't go further north when it's getting colder. It's going to just be colder.
That's my thinking.
It's like, it's going to get 20 or 30 below here in Minnesota. I'll go to Sweden.
Yeah. If I can muster up the funds, I'll go.
If anything, we should go to
Ward. Enjoy the leaf season, the leafer season.
John Ward and Maria Nilsson, they invited me out for the month, and John wants to finish working on Fox and Bear
you're finishing
with
the
me.
book. Well, all right then.
So
I'm like, well, they didn't invite me. What the hell? All right, you're finishing the book. That's fine.
Yeah,
It's
we're
fine.
finishing
I'll
the-
tolerate it. I'll tolerate it. See,
So
this is what
does that
power
mean we'll
through,
have
people.
we'll be off for a month, or are you still going to be doing this?
No, I would be on. We'd work away. He's got internet there, of course. I just have to figure it out because
We'll see a lot more of
in
John, I think, in
Sweden
those
it's
shows.
like at 9 at night here. It's like 3 in the morning in Sweden. So
Oh,
I
I
might
take
have
that
to
back.
do-
We won't see any of John in those shows.
no. Now John used to, much to his credit, when he was in Egypt, he was always 5 hours ahead of me, or 6 hours in the winter, or unless it was the other way around. And we did the Intrepid radio show Sunday nights at 9 p.m. And he was always there. It was 4 p.m., I remember. So that would be 7 hours, 3 p.m. when it was 6 hours, 6 and 7 hour differences.
You might want to pre-record at least an hour earlier, or have John
Yeah.
just sit there and stick you with a sharp stick every time you try to fall asleep.
Yes.
So
Yeah, he would get up for the show every week. So, and sometimes you could hear it in his voice. It's like, oh yes, it's 4 a.m. So
Doesn't bother me a bit.
yeah, I do my best thinking at night.
I don't
I
really
generally
care if
am
he's
up
up at 4 a.m.
pretty early. So that's why I'm
think it
tired at
surprises
the end of
him.
this show.
Many times around 4 a.m. here, he's doing a live broadcast from Egypt saying,
Yep.
oh, good morning, everyone. And I'll chime in. And he's like, it's 4 a.m. there. What are you doing up?
What are you
It's
doing
like,
up, Dave?
I'm just
So,
going to bed. It's 4 a.m. It's
yeah.
my bedtime.
So I could do pre-records, and handle it that way. But, then people are talking to each other in the chat room. I just won't be here live. I did pre-record shows for a very long time on this show. So,
I mean, you'll probably have to talk it over with Odyssey and see what they're.
yeah, I just have to they don't care as long as I upload a file every day, for them. So 52 minutes of guard. So
Well, then you and Johnny could at least do a show, an interesting
could.
show for, we wouldn't be able to chat with you, but we could chat with each other.
yes, about what John and I are talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could probably accommodate an hour earlier,
And it wouldn't be much different. You'd be saying stuff and I'd be making cracks about you and
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
I'm always irreverent.
There it is.
Yeah, I love to be irreverent about you when you're on the air.
It's okay.
You don't pay attention to much that goes on in the chat room.
I'm not bothered by your irreverence because I don't pay any attention to you. So
I wonder sometimes what the other people think in the chat room. Is he really as close as Scotty thinks?
do they really like each other?
I wouldn't be able to say stuff like that if I didn't know you so well.
That's right. What was it in the movie Stand By Me? They said the surest way to how was, I don't remember the quote, but it was, when you liked somebody well enough, you could tell by how well they insulted your mother. So, that's remember the one-liner from that movie. Did your mom have any kids that lived?
Yeah.
So
I was was talking to Scotty earlier, and he said you're definitely his radio wife. So.
Oh yeah. You're my radio wife, so get over here and sit on your lap.
All right then.
All right then. I'll sit on your lap.
I often, my dearest friends, I jibe the most. And we were sitting around one day in the lodge room, and somebody said, well, you kind of cut on everyone, don't you? And I said, well, I said that. I said, my dearest friends, I jibe the most. And he's like, well, you never jibe me. And I just looked at him and went,
Silly that.
Oh boy.
Which is about the best jibe I could give to that comment, and everybody laughed. And then I think eventually he realized, I just jibed him,
Took a minute, but
I still love the Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, the meme. He's just looking at you and he says, "Sir, if I am to be insulted, I must first value your opinion." So,
That is true. I mean, that is
Yep.
true. Whatever you give credence to, you know.
That's
But,
right.
yeah. But I mean, going back to the topic again, it was like I started, reading into it as soon as I found out what it was, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, this is going to be one of those shows where I'm going to have to defend my gender again. You know,
I thought it was actually a very powerful,
yeah,
feminine
definitely.
message.
Yeah, and it's definitely apocryphal. You know, with the whole
Yes.
female empowerment issue. You see
Yes.
it in other biblical narratives. Like
But
Esther and
do you
Deborah.
really feel that you need to defend female empowerment? I mean, you are the most powerful beings that we have.
Yeah, pretty much.
We don't create life. Well,
You have to have a hand in it. I mean,
we have a hand in it, but I'm just saying,
Thank
you
goodness.
you have the ability to carry and create a life inside your body. We can't do that. And as painful as that is, you do it more than once, often, and I can't even imagine going through that.
Yeah.
Rainey said there's some chemical reaction in the brain that when you're just about ready to give birth, well, through a lot of the pregnancy, you're like, get this thing out of me. And then right after
like the
birth,
alien.
Yeah, the scene from Alien,
Rainey
exactly what I was thinking.
Rainey was laying in the hospital bed, giving suckle to the infant, and said, "When are we going to have another one?" I'm like, maybe after you heal from this one.
I mean, there's supposed to be that whole bonding serotonin,
yes,
epinephrine rush, and then because 15 minutes earlier, she's like, she probably didn't want you to touch her ever again.
Right.
Trying to pass
there was a time there.
Pass a bowling ball through a straw.
Yeah.
Yeah, not my thing. I drop some heavy duty Duke some days, and I'm like, how did my wife do this? Just saying.
I mean, you'll have to ask someone, because women have said like passing kidney stones is just as bad, or if not worse, to giving birth. I don't have.
That's what I've heard. I've never had to deal with that, but I have heard that, and I'm like, not supposed to be shooting rocks out of that thing. That's not what it's made for. So
no.
There's supposed to be a scientific hack that if you go on roller coasters trying to pass kidney stones, it's supposed to help. But supposedly. A hack.
Oh, hack.
So
if you ride a roller coaster, you'll pass those kidney stones faster. I'm like,
you'll pick them out the other end.
I can't do roller coasters. I'm very chagrined in my older age now that I can't do roller coasters anymore. When we were at Disney World, it was actually a year ago today that we were in Disney World, that we got to Disney World. And I went on a couple of coasters, and I was just like, the motion sickness, I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It was like I walked around half the day in a daze. And it's like, I ain't doing another coaster. I can't do them. And I used to love coasters.
So you were relegated to the person bag holder.
Yeah. Dad, hold this.
Rides.
I was the dad hold this person. So, the kids were, on the very first one, I don't know what we went on. I think it was the Mummy, from the Mummy movies. It was the Mummy coaster, and it was all dark except for a couple of different places. And you're in the dark, and you're going on your whoa, and I'm just like, oh my god. And Ellie was back with Abby in a car, and we got out a few minutes ahead of her, and I said, oh my god. I said, I don't know how Ellie did. I said, I am really worried that this scared her or that she did not do well. They come running out of the exit, and Ellie's jumping around again. And she was just big.
Little Miss Carstick?
Yeah.
oh my God, you can't go around a corner over 20 miles an hour. And she's like, oh, I'm going to be sick.
I'm gonna be sick. I gotta roll down my window. It's like, hey, yeah, I've said that. I said that once. I said, look at what about those coasters you did last fall? So
Maybe it's the direction of the motion. It's direction.
I can
It's
drive
something.
like a roller coaster. I can do that if that's what keeps her from getting car sick.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she
So-
probably wouldn't do well on the Amalfi Coast because that's like 500 turns back and forth.
Right.
Ugh.
Hairpin turns and just 2 lanes, and it's just 2 lanes, and all the traffic goes in one direction. So-
Yeah, I've got no joy in that. I just
Now, my daughters, Abby and Bryn, they took us, the whole family, on that Disney trip. Well, I put up that post today, just a memory that came up, and I said, oh, it was a year ago today. And Abby wrote me and said, I don't know if she wrote me or if she put it on the post, something about, the kids call me every other day and ask when we're taking them back again, because they said something several months ago about maybe we'll go in January of 2023. And I said, well, that'd be cool. Just let me know.
Yeah, they're constantly adding new stuff on there.
Yeah.
A bunch of
Yeah.
And there's more stuff open now that was closed when we were there because of COVID
Yeah.
a year ago.
Yeah, they've taken out most of Hollywood studios and turned it into Star Wars land or something.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that, but for the most part, I've been to Disneyland. I've been to Disney World. It's just not my thing. I don't like to go on the rides. I enjoyed as a set designer and stuff. I enjoyed walking around the park and looking at the scenic work that was done.
Yes.
Very cool. But
I
been
thoroughly
there, done that,
enjoyed
so.
2 places I enjoyed last year. The Star Wars world, it's called Galaxy's End. And it was all set up like, the way the towns look in Star Wars when you go to these dusty dirt bowl desert towns. And then we went, but I got to tell you, the rides were outstanding. There was the one ride that you're like on the Death Star or something, and you're running in this cart away from being chased by the stormtroopers and all. And you got a droid in the front that's driving you around, but you enter where they had the big walkers, from Empire Strikes Back with the long legs, and you're looking up and you're going, oh my God, they built these, because you're going in between their legs and running around the room, and they're huge. And then, of course, docking bays and big windows.
Their attention to detail is
unbelievable. Yeah. And then the other place I really liked.
I could be wanting to see that.
I really liked Harry Potter World.
The Harry Potter World, yeah.
And of course, there wasn't much to see in that. They had the little town, Hogsmeade, with the snow on all the roofs, and it was like 103 degrees. And you're walking through the little town where the tavern is and all of that. And very picturesque. All shops.
I think the scenic stuff would really attract me.
Yes.
But I'm not interested in roller coasters and teacups and all that stuff.
I would like to see them do more with Harry Potter World, where there's more interactive stuff. I would like to see. I thought somebody told me, because I asked, that they're working on trying to get the Star Trek contract.
Oh,
that'll be big, but
I think that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, but especially, some people have always complained that once Disney acquires a property, it isn't what it used to be. Like some people say that about Star Wars and the Muppets and all that.
No, Disney doesn't own Harry Potter, does it?
No, Universal does.
Just a Universal. Yeah, there you go. So it would have to be a different studio, but Paramount doesn't have its own theme park. That's probably why you're not seeing any Star Trek things. So.
Well, they charge $20 to take a backstage tour at the Paramount lot, which is a piece of crap. So
yeah, I still want us all to go.
Have you done that? When I was out there, I actually had friends that worked on the lot, so I got a backstage tour that was actually a tour of the studio lot, not the amusement ride, which was rather interesting, and I enjoyed it. But I just said to him, I said, if I ever open a studio and charge $22 to trolley people around and look at fake backstage stuff, you can just shoot me. And he's like, I'll go buy a gun today just in case.
We really enjoyed walking through what was supposed to be old Hollywood, old Los Angeles at Disney World, the whole town.
Hollywood Studios.
That was really enjoyable. Even though it wasn't a lot of exhibits, it was shops where you spend more of your money. But the whole setting was gorgeous. And they had this 30s and 40s music playing over the loudspeakers. And
that fake Romans Chinese theater and the movie ride that gets you through different scenes. I would have loved to see that updated with more modern.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
There's a guy out there that's like, I don't know if he's affiliated with TMC, but TMC refers to him a lot. And you can go out and you can do an old Hollywood tour through Hollywood, like the stairs where Laurel and Hardy filmed the piano delivery, and all those kinds of locations and stuff. The place where Harold Lloyd hung off the clock on the side of the building and all that. That I would enjoy the hell out of that.
Yeah.
As we talked about on the show a few months back, we were trying to do a trip up to Ticonderoga, New York, to see the original Star Trek sets, and that anybody from the show who wanted to come, all we could offer was a discount ticket to get in there, but you'd have to get yourself there and or meet up with us somewhere along the way if it was en route, and we could pool together. But that to me would be a really cool trip and a really cool place to see.
Could we tie that in with the trip to Carolina?
It's further north,
out of the way.
But it's way out of the way. But
I'm just saying, go out and do opening weekend, drive up to Ticonderoga, head back.
If I had it my way, if I was made of money these days, I'd say, yeah, let's do it.
If you were made of money, I'd have you paying the way. See, and then
just money is so tight right now; it's unbelievable.
I hear you. No, I totally hear that.
Coming in and stuff.
I expected this Viking Fest to pay a big chunk of that trip, and it's just not going to do that. So I'm still trying to figure stuff out.
And I've got very big companies, a very big project that just aren't happening yet because they aren't getting their funding in.
I'm packing my brushes and my catering kit, so if I have to work my way home, I can.
There you go.
Well, everything in its time and its place, so
Yeah.
Right. It's time. That's all I'm saying. It's time.
Yeah.
You know what I need right now? I need. Let's see. If I had. It's about 3 logo designs a month cover my mortgage payment. Then everything else is superfluous. Internet, power, stuff like that. Then if I had one book every 2 months to illustrate, I'm talking 10 to 12 illustrations at my going rates, which I've charged for other books. One book every 2 months, so 6 books a year out of the hundreds and thousands of people that are writing kids' books. I would survive off of that. I'd more than survive off of that.
So if we could do one mural a month, we would do well.
Yep, one mural a month, we'd do well. So it's that simple math, and you go, wait a minute. If I'm supposed to be at the top of my field, why has it been? When did I finally publish Sword in the Clay? I had an investor that paid me for that, but that started in what month? October of last year. And
it was like shortly after when I joined in. So
yeah,
it's been about a year.
So it was. It's like it's been that long since I've had a paying client for a book, and I don't know if it's just the economy stupid kind of thing going on,
Well, there is
people
that.
start
Let's face
spending
it.
money on
Our income depends on other people having money that they can afford
Right.
to spend.
Right. And
Right.
everything's gone up. Everything's gone up. So
right? Yeah,
I mean,
whether
you'll
it's a
just-
publisher or an individual, it's
Yeah.
If
somebody
they don't
else.
have disposable income, we don't have income at all.
Yep.
you'll have to see if doing the book with John is a good investment for the future. You know, if
I think
Camel
there's
Hair,
a possibility.
yeah,
He made mention when
Kicks
we were
off, then-
talking.
yeah,
He said, you know, brother, he says, I've got these contracts with Disney and National Geographic because they do these shows for them. And he said, I've got these contracts. He says, all I will say is I think now would be a good time to finish this book. I don't know if he's hinting at he's already talked to some people there and there might be something in the works if we finish it. So there's that.
yeah.
We'll see how that all goes.
Everybody's looking for the next big thing. So
Right. And so far, knock on wood, there has not been. When I made that proposal 5 years ago and it went to DreamWorks, they were thoroughly elated because nobody had done anything that involved ancient Egypt. And that's what this story is heavily revolves around. And the gods of ancient Egypt. And so then when we didn't finish that, we couldn't get it to them. It just got dropped. So now enough years have gone by that we can represent it. And I haven't seen anything, knock on wood, come out like it yet. So the idea is still fresh, in other words. So there you go. That's what they want, fresh ideas. Even though it's ancient Egypt.
well, I mean, yeah, especially for geared towards kids and everything, because Disney acquired Marvel, so they have all that beast
Right.
to contend with, the Marvel universe and all that and everything. And they're milking it for its worth.
Oh, sure.
Every
Sure they are.
every character is getting its own at least a short
Mhm.
series or whatnot. So
I'm looking forward to Indiana Jones 5. Harrison Ford says it's really a good
that's
movie.
it. That's it. Is it no more after that?
Yeah. And it's he said this movie just last week, he said this movie, he says, is incredible. And you can tell if he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. So
Did he
that's
like
good to
Crystal
hear.
Skull or no?
Say that again.
Did he like Crystal Skull or no?
I loved Crystal Skull. I don't
I
know
was
why
like,
people had a big
you know.
problem with it.
Yeah.
So
It was like,
I
I-
thought it was good.
I like the premise. I dislike the fact. I wish they'd have done actual human skulls like the real crystal skulls are, instead of doing this elongated alien skull type thing, because the crystal skulls aren't carved that way.
Sure.
But overall, I enjoyed the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I go to films like that not because I'm expecting to see Shakespeare or I'm
Yeah.
going to have some great societal epiphany or something when I finish it. I go to those films to get away from everything, to escape,
Yes.
to enjoy life, and they deliver.
Yeah, they do.
yeah, I
I
mean, it's
remember,
escapism. But I mean, it seems like, almost like an end of the era, like the Spielberg era and
Yeah.
Coppola and,
Spielberg's got a few movies left in him. I love his directing. I love the movies he does. I still have not seen West Side Story. I wanted to see his take on West Side Story, which was a favorite film of mine all the way through the years. I really thoroughly love Lincoln, and a couple of other ones like that he did. I don't know what my mind's going blank, but
Schindler's List was amazing.
Schindler's
Yeah.
List was, without a doubt, probably one of the finest movies made. It did everything a movie was supposed to do.
yeah.
So,
Jaws was an amazing horror film that creeped me out and kept me out of the water for a long time.
That was in the 70s. That came out,
Yeah.
what, 75,
Well,
76?
It was the first time I can remember people literally lining up around the block to go into a movie.
Ah, yes.
Was that before The Exorcist or after?
After. I
After.
believe.
I don't remember people lining up, at least locally, lining up around the block for The Exorcist, but they were continually lined up to get into Jaws, and it continued for. That's the other thing. It's the first movie I know that just stayed in the movie theaters all summer long and into the next school year.
Right.
It didn't go. It just stayed because there were still people that hadn't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure he has people out looking for me, but I'm like the only person I think that has not seen E.T. If Spielberg ever finds me, I'm sure he's got people that are hunting me down to drag me into a theater or someplace and force me to watch.
What's the matter with you?
Don't know.
E.T. was a good movie.
A good
Not
promotion
something I
for
was
Reese's
interested.
Pieces.
Mm-hmm. And
I would really like to see like a sequel of E.T. where,
E.T.
E.T.
comes
is like
home.
I guess what you call the scout out, and then the rest of the aliens come on and just take over.
Yeah.
And they have to save everybody.
He comes back to find Elliot when he's old. Elliot's grown up and old now. He was in recently, not recently, but what did we see him? He was in Gangs of New York. And a lot of people didn't know that was him. He was the friend to the DiCaprio character. And then he was in Hell House. Was that the one they redid into the miniseries?
Oh, yeah, I think.
He was in that. He played the dad or something. So, and I've seen him in a couple of things. So,
yeah. I've noticed like over the past couple of years, especially like Halloween is not what it used to be. It's kind of like diminished or, not as celebrated or, people are going out doing things like they used to.
So childhood is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we would grab a pillowcase and we would take off and we would leave around 4:30 or 5 and we would come home around 1 in the morning. And that pillowcase would be full. And we would hit our street and we would just keep heading in a direction until
after about 8:30, people
yelled
at you for knocking on their door.
Yeah. I mean, it would be like a military base. You would say, okay, we're going to hit this neighborhood and this house with the whole candy bars and this and that. And I mean, it was.
Or so-and-so's dad would throw us on the back of a station wagon and we would drive blocks and blocks and blocks away and then work our way back towards our house.
Dad dumped you off and said, "I'll see you tonight."
Okay. I'll pick you up at 37th Street. All righty then.
And then they would go and the parents would take half the candy as soon as you got home. So.
And you didn't get little fun size. You got full size freaking candy bars.
Yeah, people didn't have to worry about razor blades and apples or
I do remember being in grade school and they were talking about razor blades and needles and apples.
Oh yeah, we would talk about it.
But
I don't ever remember anyone ever actually finding anything, but
we always
something. It was like America's Most Wanted or something. There was this guy who would hollow out Hershey's Kisses and fill it with like LSD and then recover it with chocolate and rewrap it up and give it out to people. I mean, people do
crazy,
so bizarre,
horrible stuff. I mean, nowadays they don't want people going door to door. Nowadays they prefer having trunk or treats. They would take cars to a church parking lot or
But see, that started with that whole that's kind of a 90s thing where like, don't go outside, you'll get kidnapped, and I'm like, really? Because we lived outdoors. We were outdoors.
It's all we ever did.
Yeah, our parents in the summertime would see us at breakfast and see us at dinner time sometimes.
Sometimes.
And the rule was when the street lights come on or it's hitting 10 o'clock, you got to come home.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Barbie
And then-
D says we turned off the lights after 9 p.m. growing up. Yeah. Because there were still some kids out. You get the stray kid every so often that'll knock on your door at 9:42 in the evening. Trick or treat. Like,
I
dude,
leave the lights on until the candy is gone.
there it is.
Yeah, even if you didn't have enough candy, then somebody would egg your house or thief your house back in the day.
I always gave out candy bars. And when I did trading cards, illustrated and published trading cards, I'd give away trading cards and stuff like that. So kids had cool stuff. That's the house that gives us the big candy bars and the trading cards. So,
Which one would be the best candy, though? They even have those tests out there that they tell you about your
I'm
personality
a
by the
huge
type of candy.
Butterfinger guy. And it's hard to dick with a Butterfingers bar.
I like Butterfingers. I always gave away Snickers or Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, those were my favorite.
Full size.
Yeah.
So
I always like putting the peanut butter cups in the freezer. You ever had them out of the freezer?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Rainey likes Reese's, so therefore Ellery likes Reese's and Rowan likes Reese's. So Ellery would live off of candy if she could.
She's
Yes,
made of
you would.
candy.
Well, guys, it's 11:01. Guess what?
Oh,
We're gonna
the
call it a
tide
night.
is ticking away, and time waits for no man like the tide.
That's right. So, Sarah, thank you for being here.
No problem.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah.
It's a lovely
Definitely
pleasure
be
to
here.
see you,
Yeah.
Yes. Good to see you.
even though
Have
we
a good
don't
night.
see you.
Take
That's
care,
right.
guys.
All right. Well,
Boy. you got an
send
itchy
me a
neck.
post in the morning, and I'll share it about.
All right. I'll get
Um,
something put together for that.
I think we'll get a whole bunch of blokes in to chat tomorrow.
I wish I had a good picture of Mark, but
Take a look on Greg's site.
okay.
Greg Marchand, he had posted some guard stuff.
right.
And
put
I
that
think Angela did. You should be able to from that harvest some.
All right.
I'll take a look in my stuff, see if I have anything I can send you.
Sounds good.
Dana might have some pictures of him. They used to be fight partners.
I saw one she put up, but his face wasn't toward the camera.
Yeah.
Well,
But she
I'll
might have
figure it
some
out.
others. All right.
All right, Dave. You have a good night, brother. I'll talk to you
Live
tomorrow.
long and prosper, lad.
Live long and prosper. Arr. All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Putting up with the captain's cabin and my little electrical surge over here where we lost our power zapped for a second. And of course, it turned off all the internet and it had to boot back up. So thanks for sticking around. Dave did a good job with Sarah doing their thing. So you all have a good night now. And I'm going to sign us out. I'll see you tomorrow. Live long and prosper. Live long and prosper. Arr.